Hello humans, my name is Alore Scott. I am a writer, an illustrator, and a Saiyan. And this is my unnamed show where we talk about all the things that make storytelling great so that we can create our own. I feel like there's a certain pattern that goes into good storytelling, and I wanted to explore what devices are used to make stories stick in our minds and become our favorites. So let's go. The first component to me of good storytelling is characters who are uniquely themselves. Your characters are the vehicle with which you experience the story and you create the story. You can understand who they are and how they are. Unique characters are unmistakable. They anchor you to the story that's been created for them and with them in it. One of the best examples I can think of as a great character is Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders. Thomas Shelby of the Shelby clan in England around the time of post-World War I is a brilliant mastermind. He is a criminal overlord, intelligent, fierce, decisive, and violent. He keeps pushing on. He keeps getting into deeper and darker and bigger risks, and he brings his family along with him, which I have my own feelings on that. I am going to talk about that later. His whole life is it's kind of a hell of its own making in its own way, with the decisions that he makes and the consequences. And Cillian Murphy's acting also contributes to his embodiment, and that is why Tommy Shelby is a strong character, and good stories have strong characters that you can walk alongside. And I think Tommy Shelby is someone, what a path to walk. Expansive worlds. Expansive worlds is what makes a story breathe and live and come alive. I think that even in a story that is 5 seconds long, you can create something that is believable and exploratory. Gon's story in Hunter x Hunter is the perfect example of a world that lives outside of the main character. So Hunter x Hunter and Gon's adventure is about this little kid who's been dumped off by his deadbeat hunter father, who does not want to meet him, on a small remote island, going off to find his father and become a hunter. And you think this is just a journey for a brave, talented kid and his brave, talented friends who are all different, where he just hops along and becomes the hero and gains all this power, and then he just moves on. But this world does not give a fuck about Gon. His father is a mystery to him, but he leaves tiny little breadcrumbs. Gon follows this violent, dark path that gets more and more dangerous for him and pushes him to be stronger and stronger, but he's still never strong enough. If Gon died in that story, the world will go on. The characters are rich, but they all are outside of the story. Gon just happens to smash into them. This is how big the world is. It keeps bringing the level to a higher boiling point. Gon doesn't even matter in that world. Like, we see the world through him, but he is being taken on the ride. He is not in control of this machine at all. That is why you should watch it. Senses. So I mentioned how your character, as unique as they are, will drag you along with them through their world. All of the good stories that I like guide your senses. Good storytelling pulls you into its scene, its atmosphere. You just feel what's around you through those characters. Spartacus depicts the brutal slave system that the Romans put on all of their slaves. You feel everything all the way down to the weather, which is very closely tied to the wealth and systems that are in place in Spartacus's city, which is Capua, and Roman culture itself. The aspect of blood and gore and violence is explosive and hyped, and the sexuality is explosive and hyped, but it's always with the undercurrent violence against these people. These people's lives are not their own. And I think it's really well done. It shows the pain, the conflict, so check it out. Challenges and consequences. Good storytelling understands and demonstrates cause and effect. When you have a story that establishes rules and it has no consequences, it takes away the tension and realism of that story. It takes away the weight of that story. Anderson .Paak's Milk and Honey is a great song, but also a story about a man who brings about his own downfall. A young man falls into the trap of sex, money, drugs, and luxury, but while he is indulging himself, he comes to give in to his worst impulses, which makes him blind to the danger that is around him. It's beautiful and terrifying. Everything is given to him without a challenge. He moves through this dreamlike state, and he doesn't see all the warning signs of why everything is so easy for him. It's an excellent song, and it's one of my favorite, and I love Anderson .Paak's music, so please give it a listen. A satisfying ending. All the little beats that have been threaded into the journey or hinted at, or the straight up plot, all of the things that made the world and the journey come together deserves to be concluded in a way that made sense for everything that occurred. Every story deserves a worthy ending for what it brought to you, the audience, and myself. And I think that we have, I could go into different shows that have ended badly, but I think as creators, we should also spend time working on how we can make our story connect as competently and as faithfully as possible, So, The Last Kingdom is an excellent show that I think has one of the best endings I've ever seen. Uhtred is a person that we live life with. He starts off as a child, and then his life just transforms as he's living in, the Middle Ages. He lives like 1,000 years ago, because it's based on a true man, Uhtred is constantly at war. He has people manipulating him who are more powerful than him. But throughout his entire show, his entire story, Uhtred has had a single-minded goal, and that is to get back home. His life transforms. The people around him grow with him and change with him. And when it gets to the ending, every experience that he's had throughout the show has brought him to an ending it's an ending. It's an ending that is earned. It's a well-deserved ending. The last and the most important thing I want to talk about when it comes to good storytelling is earnestness. Earnest storytelling is the most important aspect of storytelling. You creating something from yourself to share with others is what makes storytelling good. I know so many people who say, oh, I want to write this, or oh, I want to draw this, or oh, I would love to make a video game like that, and they never do it. And I think a lot of self-doubt comes in, and a lot of, second guessing, shyness, things like that, which is totally normal and it's totally human. But when you create something from yourself that you enjoy and you share it with others to enrich other people, That is the core of storytelling. Even if your story is considered objectively bad, you can always get better if you earnestly and honestly want to tell a good story. You can always make another story. You can always create another piece of art, so long as it comes from you. So you absolutely can and should create something that is authentic to your experience. What do you think? I want to know good stories that you love and the things that you notice that make them really good. So now that we've talked about, I've talked about what I like in good storytelling, we need to put our money where our mouth is. So I wrote and illustrated a story for y'all that I'd like to share. Quan dreamed he was high up on the International Space Station, looking down on the burning mountain where he lived. The girl with the star-studded veil across her face sat beside him. She could not have been older than 18, with shadows obscuring her skin color. The top of her head was crowned with a kinky, intricate knot. She opened her hand to Quan expectantly. He placed his dripping bloody heart in her palm. She tipped his heart to him, her black eyes gleaming in thanks. They run out of water. That morning, Quan poured the last of their bathroom water into his washing bowl, only enough for his face. He scrubbed away the previous day's sweat and ash and looked at himself in the mirror. His long brown face looked clean enough and nice in the sun. He smiled, then grimaced. He had a heat rash on his arm. A layer of grime was growing in the bathroom sink. Quan changed into his clothes, a thin orange tank and green basketball shorts. He stepped into his bedroom. His wife, Michelle, lay deep in sleep, sweaty with the sheet kicked off. He kissed her goodbye in spirit, promising she'd wake up to a bath like royalty. In the living room, Quan took one last inhale of the decent air in his house before stepping outside. The summer heat smacked his face just before the smell of rotting garbage and smoke curled his nose. The sun was not even fully up, the sky tinted grayish pink. Outside, Quan's shopping cart held several blue empty water bottles. The wildfires were further up north on the mountain, but the air in Quan's town was a gray fog. Quan could see the flames, a red line where the trees burned underneath a cloud of smoke so thick it looked heavy. Quan started walking toward the lake to the water company. Above him in the sky, the International Space Station zipped past, a long snake of white light. Quan's stomach roiled at the sight of it. He looked ahead. The roads had been closed to the public for 3 weeks. Cars lined the street, bumper to bumper, in coveted parking spots. Quan saw a mother breastfeeding her baby in the wide-open door of a back seat, her burned legs and clothes spilling out. Must be a newer family escaped from up the mountain, Quan guessed. A fire truck, an ambulance, and a public safety car shot by, sirens screaming through the fog. Quan passed by the only park in their town. The park was full, the grass crushed into mud. Row after row of multicolored tents, bed sheets, and broken furniture protected burned people from the heat and rain. The tent city smelled of trash and shit, loud with adults sitting on salvaged furniture, babies crying, laughing children, and those going for water. Shit! Quan stumbled away from the park fence, avoiding an older man bathing completely nude outside his tent beside a large pot of water. People were starting to crowd the walkway, coming in from the side streets. Most carried large water bottles, rolling them in shopping carts. Everyone on foot was heading to the Lake Ocoee Water Company, a mile downhill on the lake itself. The lake sat murky blue and pitifully low in a bleached rock basin. Quan merged into the line that was casually forming and listened to bits of chatter. His sweaty shirt stuck to his back. The mayor says his water's still turned on because he's conducting essential business. A familiar teen girl with chocolate chip freckles and a kinky top knot sneered behind him. Quan's heat rash burned. What's more essential than them? They don't got nothing, the girl kept on. Quan did his best to ignore her. Wasn't even sure who she was talking to. Still, his eyes strayed to the crowd out in front of the gates of the water company. It was longer than the line and bigger than the last time he went for water. Shouts reached him from the crowd of, "Please, help us, and water!" Always water. Quan flexed his fingers around his cart handle. He had to get his own and take care of his Michelle. It was nearly his turn at the water pump, a brick wall with 2 rusted faucets. Quan looked at the glowing red price sign, $2.56 yesterday and $3.09 per gallon today. The faucets. Quan groaned to the sky. The first faucet was missing the handle to turn it on. A note was smacked on the brick above it. "Clearly, this one is broken," it said. Cute, Quan thought, moving on to the next faucet. He placed a big blue bottle from his cart underneath it. Quan fished his credit card from his pocket and slipped it into the pump's money slot. A dotted red line flashed across the screen. It was fritzing out. Quan pressed the cancel button to get his card back. The dotted line flickered. Sparks flew out the machine and the screen went black. Quan blinked for a moment at the water pump while the freckled girl behind him said, "What's the problem?" tapping her foot. He tried pushing a few more buttons. Then he fiddled with the handle, trying to will water into his bottle. "Asshole, did you break the machine?" some man accused Quan. Other people started complaining. He could feel their eyes and their feet getting closer to him. Quan jammed the cancel button down again. When the machine refused to respond, Quan lost his patience and kicked the screen console. Kicked it again. The machine sparked, then spat Quan's plastic card out, chewed and melted. His jaw clenched. "I got my card back!" Quan shouted to everyone. The freckled girl laughed behind him. "Good for you," she said. Her black eyes gleamed. Quan lifted his foot and kicked the water faucet. Water sprayed out from the brick wall, clear and beautiful. "I fixed the machine," Quan told everyone. He placed his bottle under the spring. The freckled girl walked up and kicked the broken faucet at his side. More water than Quan's gushed out. She gave him a bright smile. "The water's free," she sang to the people on the line. Quan filled his bottle and loaded his cart. Others came up, taking their turn to fill. It was just as Quan was helping an old woman lug her bottle into a cart that Quan heard it. "He's lost his mind!" Public safety guards appeared beside Quan and pulled his arms behind his back. The man who'd called him an asshole was pointing and spitting, but Quan kept hearing, "That fucking nut! What is he doing?" from somewhere else. Quan turned his head to the voices screaming in outrage. A man, sweating in casual business clothes, stood atop a truck at the gate entrance to the water facility. The crowd was converging toward it. "The water company's open!" the man on the truck roared with a speech horn. "Come inside, everyone!" He seemed drunk, swinging his arm, beckoning them. But everyone listened to him. The crowd was moving. The people from the line were moving. The safety guards holding Quan were paralyzed as bodies pressed past them. The freckled girl slammed into Quan, yanking him from the guard's hold and pushing him along with the crowd into the water company gate. Okay, so what did you think? Did I hit those points that I discussed in the video? What do you think could make the story better? What do you think would make the story more engaging? Or what are some things that you notice that you think could have improvement? I really would like your feedback, so leave a comment and thank you for subscribing. If you like my writing style, if you like the way I tell stories, please consider buying my book on Amazon. It's called Niche Tales Under Her Skin. It's an illustrated adult romance. Now it's your turn. I want you to make a story in any medium, however you want, and make it feel real. I want you to make it feel like it is coming from you with all your good stuff. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will come back to you as soon as I can with more thoughts, more talk about storytelling. So I will see you as soon as I can see you. Goodbye. Mwah.